Hello and welcome everyone to the first of what we hope to be a really great series of here on our Unqork Twitch channel. My name is Danny Pancratz. I'm the Director of Community at Unqork, and I'm happy to be joined today by one of our community subject matter experts, LTI Mindtree's Shashank Raj. So this is the first of our Ask You Anything series. So special thanks to Shashank for kicking us off. The goal of this is really, as I mentioned, my role is part of leading Unqork's community. Shashank's a key contributor to our community, and community is made up of people helping others. And in our case, Unqork creators helping others out. Hundreds of questions answered, sharing use cases, best practices, and advice. And we're connected all over the world, which is a really cool thing about our community. And our thought with this series is to take opportunities to have a conversation, to get to know each other a little bit, share a bit about our backgrounds, our experience building on Unqork, how that has changed our careers, and what areas of expertise, so that like other great communities, you can get to know each other better and connect and expand your networks and celebrate the people who are really driving a lot of the success in our community. So thank you all for joining us, and thanks again to Shashank for being the first to dive into this. Shashank, it's great to see you.
Great to see you too, Danny. I'm happy to be here and happy to discuss about my journey, how it has been with the working on the Unqork platform.
So I mentioned that our community, one of the great things about our community is we're spread out all over the world. I'm in the Atlanta, Georgia area in the United States. Where are we talking to you today?
I'm in Bengaluru, Karnataka in India.
Great. Yeah, I know we have a lot of great creators in your area and all over India, as well as other parts of the globe. So Shashank, where I think it would be great to get to know you to start this conversation is, let's talk about your life before you were working with Unqork. So what were you doing before you heard Unqork for the first time, your education or your job experience or anything that you think relevant?
So I had, so post completing my computer science graduation, I had started working as a full stack developer at TCS, and I was working with mostly with the backend on Java and the databases. And post that, I went ahead, did my MBA, and then got to know more about Unqork post my MBA. But before that, I was working as a traditional coder, and I used to sit behind a desk working through my laptop, and I didn't used to look at clients. I didn't know how to interact with people, and I was just I used to pop off my hood and wear and used to work as a traditional coder, and that's all I used to do.
Yeah, so really the stereotype of a traditional coder, hoodie on, just hands on keys, head down, working on that. So, that's a theme that we've heard. We've gotten to know some other members of our community through some of our hackathon showcases of winners and finalists, and some of our power user spotlight blogs that we've done. I think we've done at least one on you, that that traditional coding background, but then coming over and starting to build on Unqork. So how do you feel that prepared you, that full stack developer background, your CS degree, your MBA, how did that prepare you for getting to work building on Unqork?
So understanding Unqork is fairly easy even without a computer science background, but I would say it helps when it has to do with architecture planning and connecting systems and adding services onto Unqork. So if you have worked with APIs before, that experience comes into picture when I start working with a no code platform like Unqork. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I hadn't really worked with APIs very much before joining Unqork and going through the boot camp and the training that all of our staff do. And that was kind of the biggest learning curve thing. But actually, learning that through Unqork really unlocked my use of APIs through a lot of other things, which has been great. It's one of those things in my career doing community. I had heard a lot about APIs, but I hadn't really used them. And Unqork was a really accessible way for me personally to do that. So let's... for the next question on that theme, you kind of already mentioned this a little bit or implied it. What was your life before working with Unqork when you're that traditional full stack developer coder? You mentioned the hoodie, never really talking to clients. How are things different now, I guess, that since you begun working with Unqork? I sense that it's quite different. You're working with clients a lot more.
Yeah, it's completely changed, and that is because we have very less number of people working on a single project, and the project lifespan is also way shorter as compared to a traditional coding project. So we tend to interact with the clients more, and since we have less number of people working, we have more visibility, and the leadership gets to know us better, the clients get to know us better, we get to know the processes and how to architect the entire project, and so it overall builds you as a human, as opposed to just sitting and coding and doing and solving a problem versus solving the entire architecture and communicating and understanding what the client wants. So those areas it helps a lot, and it has helped me grow. I'm sitting with you here, I wouldn't be sitting
Yeah.
discussing this with you live, but I would just be simply coding. So it
That's
helps a
so
lot.
great to hear. And I've mentioned you a lot in some of our internal meetings when I'm telling the story of our community, because I joined a couple months before Uncork Create in 2021, and you were one of our speakers from the community. And just really looking at your LinkedIn and talking to you a little bit, I know that, yeah, you went from one of our partner companies to another partner company to another one, and you've had some career advancement. You spoke at Uncork Create. You've contributed so much to the community as you became an SME. And as we were talking before this, you were mentioning, that it sounds like that client work and getting that face-to-face time and working on smaller teams has really been beneficial for your career. And where do you want to go next with your career, Shashank?
So I have been wanting to move into project management from a very long time, and that's the reason why I went ahead to do my MBA. And it takes time, but through Uncork, that time becomes even lesser because
Hmm.
more and more recognition and more people get to know you from the leadership, and so it's easier to move career tracks. And so my next area would be going into project management.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about projects. We shared your bio a little bit when we were promoting this on our Uncork social channels and on the community. Can you share for the audience? I'm pretty familiar, but what types of projects have you worked on with Uncork? What type of industries? You mentioned problem solving. What types of business problems are you solving?
Right. So I have worked with people often consider Uncork as a tool to build mostly BFSI, banking, insurance kind of projects. But I have worked in various different kinds of projects on Uncork, whether it be disaster management, CRM tools, building ERP systems,
Wow.
insurance, and inside insurance, I have learned about property insurance, sports insurance, which different types of subdomains inside the main domain as well. So worked in different kinds of projects.
And has that been helpful for your career as well, getting that broad
Absolutely,
exposure? Yeah. That's
absolutely.
that's really nice to be able to go wide, working with different areas as well as deep, as you mentioned, different processes and business problems within a focus industry like insurance. So for our audience, those watching live, if you have questions related to those industries or those projects or something you want to ask Shashank, I have a couple more questions for him. Please drop it in the comments, or we'll share this video in our community and you can connect with him there as well. I'll keep an eye on those comments. But the next questions I have for you, Shashank, are let's call it our lightning round. Favorite things about Uncork, right? So looking at popular topics on the community, we hear a lot about different components. So of all the Uncork components, which is your favorite one to work with and why?
Um, I My favorite one was used to be dynamic grid when it had come out, but now it is the panel component and the dynamic refresh ability that they have that has just been added. So it was in beta. I think it's going to get released soon, and that actually says how Unqork works as a codeless architecture or CaaS system, where you feed in a JSON data and it converts into a UI. So I know Gary had explained that, and he had streamed about how Unqork works as a codeless architecture, but this panel component with that dynamic refresh feature, where you use UI paint data to actually create components on the go, that actually translates into how big this could be, and obviously
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. For our audience or others in the community, stay tuned for much more on dynamic refresh. As Shashank mentioned, the customer stories, the problem solved from the beta period has been really powerful, really great. So we're going to be telling that story more broadly very soon in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully have a community hackathon as well to give our creators a reason to get hands-on with dynamic refresh if you haven't already. So I think I know the answer to this next one. Is the next question was going to be favorite grid, and you had said dynamic grid. So
Yeah.
is dynamic grid your favorite, or is there a second favorite grid?
That would be, I think, this at the second number. I would have uniform grid and freeform grid together, but dynamic grid is still on top.
And for our audience, just about a year ago is when those new grid components came out, and very quickly we saw fast adoption on the community, a lot of questions about them, and a lot of open questions were then answered with like, hey, this grid's going to help you out to be able to do what you want. I see dynamic grid in the most, as you mentioned, just really giving kind of the flexibility and the capabilities people are looking for there. But the number one thing on the community, as you probably know, Shashank, is people are talking about data workflow, because data workflow in itself has so many operators, is so powerful for really transforming the data that people are working with. So tell me a little bit about your favorite things about data workflow. Do you have specific operators or kind of techniques that you use to really get your data to where you want it to be?
Right. So the major part of working with data would be to convert one form to the other form, and I think a couple of operators like filter and merge operators are the most common ones that I use, and a combination of couple of merge operators would give you results where instead of that you would want to use couple of for loops, but then you're using just two operators to do the same task, and it becomes really fast. So yeah.
Great. I know you did a marketplace listing demo for us on our community success hour about 6 months ago. So do you have a favorite marketplace accelerator, a snippet, or a template that's really helped speed up your builds?
That would still be Status Blueprint Accelerator, and we have actually implemented it for one of our clients, and they're really happy with it because status management is something that is required in most of the client projects, and if that can be pre-built into the system or just plugged into the system so that the entire process becomes faster, that would be great, and that's what it does. So yeah,
Well, that's really great to hear. I remember you saying when you did that demo, I wasn't aware of this. I'm glad I did this demo because I'm planning to use it on all of my projects. So it sounds like that's really become the case. So a couple more questions for you. Last call to our audience. If you have anything you'd like me to ask Shashank for our conversation today. So you are a community subject matter expert. That means you've answered, at least 20 questions. I know since becoming a subject matter expert, you've answered many more over the last, I think, year and a half that you've been an SME or more. So can you describe for us a community question that helped you by answering it?
Right. So there was a scenario where we had to perform, encryption on a file before sending it to an SFTP server, and we were not very well aware about how to do that on Unqork. And so it is possible via GPG encryption and setting up that service. And so at that point, I couldn't search for a lot of articles, although now they are available. But at that time, it wasn't. And so I had asked couple of questions and I got the answers very quickly. So we were able to integrate that into the system, and we were able to encrypt and decrypt very easily.
Great. Well, I want to wrap up with a couple more questions about you and then any advice you have for the rest of our community. So, what are you best at, right? So if somebody's thinking, I want to go to Shashank for a question, what is the thing that you are best at when it comes to working with Unqork?
So I have worked with most, if not all, Unqork components, but I would say I'm still good at data workflows and transforms. And overall, architecting and setting up projects, SSO, private link, encryption and decryption, as I said. And yeah, so if there are any questions about, encryption, decryption, or setting up SSO or overall environment architecture, please do ask me.
Great. The other side of that question is, what's something with Unqork that you're hoping to improve on? What's a skill you'd like to develop?
So I have, as I said, I've been working always with since the beginning of my career with middleware and backend. So I haven't worked a lot with CSS. So I'd like to improve that. And we recently had Style Administrator integrated onto our system as well. So I want to learn more about CSS and how to dynamically, do styling across components. So that is one thing I'd like to learn.
And I think that's something that I've heard we're looking to make easier for creators as well, right? To,
Right.
less code, right? That's what we're all about. Codeless architecture, codeless applications. So the thing to wrap up with here, Shashank, is we heard about you. We've learned a lot about you. I want to wrap up with two pieces of advice. So you've worked at a number of our partner companies. You've been working with Unqork for more than 4 years, in our community for more than 4 years. You're an SME. What is a best practice that you and your colleagues use that you'd really recommend for everyone?
So, so in best practices, I would say we try to follow API first approach. So we kind of so Unqork overall is a tightly coupled system. So we want to decouple the front end and the back end so that the logic stays in the back end. And we try doing that using the API first approach, where we make sure that there's a soft decoupling between the front end and the back end. So that is one of the best practices. The other ones would be to abstract logical components outside of the modules, and also to make sure that a component readability is maintained, so that tomorrow if somebody else comes into the project and tries to understand what this project is all about, they should just look at the components one after the other, and they should get to know what's happening next. So those are the best practices I'd say.
Great. And then the last question on that theme is, what advice do you have for other creators?
I would say to understand the complete project. If so, in general, what happens is people are given a certain area of the project to work on, but I would suggest that and developers tend to not attend a lot of meetings. They don't like to attend meetings. They like to work on configurations. So I'd like to tell them to attend most meetings, if not all, and try to understand the overall architecture rather than just sticking to what they are working on, and being active in the community. I think I'm not active as much as I was when we had the Stack Overflow community, but yeah, but being active in the community helps, because it helps understand what are other areas which I have not worked in, that I can learn via the community, and maybe even help them out by doing a POC, and through that I learn and even they learn. So
Well, yeah, that's great advice. I know one of the reasons, one of the challenges for people like you is, as you move up, as you become an SME, as you get new experiences and more responsibilities at work, it's tough to make time for for contributing on the community. But we appreciate when you do have the time and when you come in to help, and especially we appreciate your time today. And I think that's a great place to wrap up that story of how Unqork's helped you by giving you faster projects, more time to spend on those meetings, to get to know clients, to learn about the big picture, the business problems that you're solving, And that sounds like it's definitely helped you build better applications for your clients. So congratulations to you, and thank you, Shashank. Appreciate your time. And it's been great to ask you anything. And we hope to join that you all watching will join us for future sessions on this series. But otherwise, until then, we'll see you on the Unqork community.
Thanks, Danny.